week 2. Well, let me exit here. Exit assignment. Week. Week 2. What was that?
This is from week
Chapter.
2, financial statement analysis, chapter 1.
Okay, got it.
Okay. And
Yep.
it's the first question.
All right. Current year, prior year.
All right.
Financial statements.
I don't know if I was overthinking question 1, where it says, what is the total amount of assets invested into Apple in the current year? Is it as simple as that amount right there, liabilities plus equity equals assets?
Yep.
Because I kept thinking, how do I know what assets are invested?
Yeah,
See where
I
I'm
know
going with the
it's
question?
yeah, absolutely. The word problems are always the worst. You have a set of information, you asked it in a way that's not necessarily consistent with the way you read it before, maybe in the book or whatnot, and you have to what do you think? What do they say? You have to fill in the blank. You have to figure it out. And so when they talk about total amount of assets, they're trying to gauge if you can figure out the assets equals liabilities plus equity. And with some parts of the information, can you figure out the rest, right? Can you triangulate this? Now, on this one, it's pretty straightforward because they already gave you the liabilities and equity, the 365. So then you have to say, okay, well, out of all this information I've got here, how do I figure out the total amount of assets? And it is a
Assets
365
equal
solution.
liabilities plus equity.
Yep, that's it. And so you have it right here, right? Asset equals liabilities plus equity. So that one's there.
Well,
What is Apple's return on assets?
And that's why I was asking, are revenues considered another word for equity? Because I answered it at 265, 595 and got it wrong.
Yeah, no. That is where some of the way the book shows what revenues is a little misleading.
Yep.
Because it does convert to equity, but what converts to equity is in reality is this 59,531
Well,
converts to
not only
equity.
that, but in the reading and in one of the videos when they were talking about the equation assets equal liabilities plus equity, the presenter was also talking about how to rewrite the formula if you only know part of the information. Like if you know what liabilities and equity are, then you know what assets are. Or if you know what assets and liabilities are, you can subtract liabilities from assets to get equity.
Yep.
And vice versa. And that one word invested is what screwed me up.
Yep, definitely. So on the next one, what is that Apple's return on assets? Then you just take the net income divided by the average of these two numbers, right? So if I do bring up my calculator, first come up with the average, 365, 725 plus 375, 319 divided by 2. That's my average assets, right? And then I need to take 59,531 divided by that, and it should be 16.1-ish. 16.1-ish. Now the trick, okay, this one with the data you have here, how much are total expenses for Apple for the current year? So knowing that the revenues are 265, but you don't know expenses, so revenue minus expenses equals net income, you have the two other pieces that you need for that, or the two pieces of the 3-part equation. So this is going to be the 265, 595 minus the 59,531. Should be 206,064. Yep.
All right, so on requirement number 2, and this is where I got it right, but I got it wrong. So
Hmm,
I came up with 16.2. The correct answer is 16.1 plus or minus 0.01. I did
yeah,
the 59,531 divided by not the average of the 2 years, but by the amount of the current year, which gave me my 16.2.
yeah,
It still fell in the parameters, but when you get a larger disparity between the net income and the liability, that's when you're going to start getting them wrong if you're not doing the average when you have multiple years of information that are being applied to it. And I
absolutely.
now remember the conversation we had last semester where you have to really read the question to understand, are they looking for the average in part of your equation, or are they only looking for current year?
Mm-hmm. Yep, that is true. And then sometimes they give you the average, and I forget which one it was, but they had the same type of Apple versus Google type thing, or they had an Apple versus Google deal, and they gave you the average AR, or they gave you the average value of something. And so some people average the two numbers thinking that they needed to do that instead of just taking the average.
They already,
And
so when they give you the average, use the average. When they don't give you the average, but you have multiple years, then you need to figure out what the average is before completing the rest of the equation.
that's correct. Yep. Yep. So just one thought that comes to mind, usually accounting deals in accuracy based on the information you're given, and you have to understand the information you're given, which is hard because it's a little tricky sometimes. Like even going back, total assets invested, right? Well, what does that really mean? What's that word mean? Well, if you get it wrong, then you probably get the problem wrong.
Yep,
Um,
like I did.
if you if 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 you forgot to average these and you thought these were average numbers, then you may get them wrong. Like you said, if the difference in the numbers was had a larger spread versus pretty tight right here, right? Okay, and then on this last one is Apple's current year return on assets better or worse than the competitor's average of 10% return? Okay, well theirs was what's
16.1.
16.1, so it's better. A higher return on assets is better than a 16.1% return on assets is better than a 10% return.
As
And so
opposed
that's
to
better.
debt ratio, the lower the number, the more solvent you are.
That's right. Yeah. So then you have to understand, well, what do the ratios really tell you? Right.
Yep.
Higher, lower numbers. Okay. Any other questions?
I'm done with 2.
You done with 2? Well, let me see if there were any other questions that show up on some of the support things. Now I have two classes, so I'm just going to go to both of them and look at what's there. Let's see. Homework support presenters. No.